Absolute Batman number 7 from DC Comics sets Bruce Wayne on a bone-chilling mystery with a grotesque and horrific twist. Is this the best issue in the series to date? Let's find out in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. The first thing you're going to notice when you read Absolute Batman number 7 is some things come to the front, some things move to the back. You got to give a little to get a little, as a saying goes. But in my opinion, this is the kind of storytelling that significantly elevates the series. Why? Because you get creatively original variations on a familiar character, a pretty decent mystery, and some entertaining surprises without the over-the-top theatrics that this title has been known for. Some people may like the, as we sometimes call it, the big dumb Batman, but in this case, the detective part of the character comes to the forefront, and I think it makes for a much more interesting story. Let's talk about the pros and cons, starting with what's great about Absolute Batman number 7. Writer Scott Snyder dials back the chaos for a tight, more grounded tale. Bruce is mourning his old friend Matches Malone, and yeah, in this universe, they're two separate people, piecing together his bloody demise. It feels like prime Batman detective storytelling. For example, you have Matches, which is a unique character. You get lots of deep, sort of introspective character interactions when Bruce is dealing with the fallout of the fact that his identity is now known to his friends. You have this Ark-M type of facility that's being built, and there's a big mystery surrounding that. And it's all centered around characters who are very familiar in their names once they're referenced to build you up to this idea that the Rogues Gallery is taking a much bigger, broader shape in this particular universe. So that's a mystery with teeth. And so what's not great about Absolute Batman number 7? Mysteries require breadcrumbs. You've got to drop little clues that bring the reader and the person who's acting as detective along on the journey to get them to where they need to go. For the most part, the mystery is okay, but there's one breadcrumb, one crucial little piece of information that Bruce Wayne learns that leads him to eventually this company called V-Corps, which will eventually lead him to what we'll now know as Absolute Mr. Freeze. That one breadcrumb, which is the association between Ark-M, this black site prison, and V-Corps, that breadcrumb is very loose and very, I would say, even in this case, further in the analogy, it seems a little underbaked. It's a pretty, I won't say it's a big leap, but it's big enough that you're like, that just sort of popped out of nowhere, and it takes you out of the story a little bit. It's not a big problem, it's a small problem, but it's one that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Let's switch gears and talk about the art. We have the second guest artist that's filling in on this series after only 7 issues. So that's a little bit of a point of concern. But how did Marcus Martin do? I mean, overall, not bad. The lines are pretty clean, the forms are solid, but Martin's style for how he presents big, large, sort of pin-headed Batman is much more sedate and toned down compared to Nick Dragotta, who is the main artist on the title. Now, you can say, well, that's great. I mean, you don't get this weird, sort of outlandish, exaggerated form of Batman. Yes, but Nick Dragotta's style is sort of the hallmark of the series and why it's so unique and different. Whether you love it or hate it, it stands out. Marcos Martin's art doesn't stand out in that same way, and it feels more like a traditional Batman book. So some people may think, if you don't like Nick Dragotta's art, maybe that's a positive. But if you like the kind of the establishment of the style Dragotta has created, you're going to feel like this issue is just less than. If you want to dig into the details, here's a recap of what happened last time in Absolute Batman number 6. Bruce took down Black Mask's yacht scheme to create this sort of purge night chaos within Gotham City. He infiltrated the yacht, destroyed the servers that were sending these heads-up display signals to people in Gotham wearing the party animal masks, and shut down the entire operation. During the fight, Black Mask was actually blinded when Absolute Batman stabbed him through the eyes with his cowl ears, I guess is the way you want to call that. So the city returned to normal. Black Mask is apprehended, possibly maimed for life, but Batman was pretty banged up in the whole ordeal, so now he's recovering. And here's what happens in Absolute Batman number 7. Bruce and his pals begin with an informal memorial for their friend Matches Malone. He was a troubled guy, lots of tattoos, very twitchy, probably on drugs, but he was known to get into all kinds of criminal shenanigans, like creating fake IDs, like taking on dares that probably were over the line. Bruce shows up to the memorial, and he's still wounded and recovering from his ordeal with Black Mask, and he swears to his friends that he's going to find out how Matches Malone died. Now, we know in a flashback that days earlier, Bruce reached out to Matches to get fake ID information so that he could become an employee on the Ark-M Black Site project. When he finally meets up with Matches after the IDs are created, he learns that Matches had already been on site and actually chose to work there temporarily to find out what's going on for himself, because he is a daredevil to a fault. And he learns that the Black Site prison, called Ark-M, Ark-M if you will, is already taking on inmates. There's possibly some shady stuff going on, and that the prison somehow, without getting into the details, is associated with a number of world-renowned scientists, including the name Victor Fries, associated with a Gotham company called V-Corps. So even though Bruce is injured, he dons the bat suit and makes his way through the night skies over to the V-Corps facility, which is still online. He infiltrates the building and changes back into Bruce Wayne, disguised as a city engineer, which isn't a stretch for him, to do an inspection to figure out what's going on inside. There he meets Victor Fries Jr. He's a scientist who is helping his parents with their cryo-freeze or cryotech technology that freezes life forms that have either been extinct for a very long time, or human patients who are inflicted with incurable diseases that puts them on ice until a cure for the diseases can be found. We learn that two of the patients who are frozen in ice are Victor Fries Jr.'s mother and father, Victor Sr. and Nora Fries. While he's looking around the lab, Bruce spots bacteria linked to Matches Malone's death. But before he can do anything about it, Victor becomes this strange, sort of distorted, elongated, amorphous monster that is a result of the fact that Victor Fries Jr. was one of V-Corps' first patients, and his new condition is a side effect of the ice treatment. So final thoughts, what do we think about Absolute Batman number 7 from DC Comics? It tracks a dark mystery with a really grisly, horror-inspired twist for Mr. Freeze. You get lots of detective sleuthing, which is a good way to develop the character. One of the clues is a little bit off, but we can go with it. And there is a guest artist on the book who does a decent job, but it's significantly far away from Nick Dragotta's unique, sort of bombastic style. Therefore, Absolute Batman number 7 from DC Comics earns an 8.5 out of 10. Leave a thumbs up if you found this review helpful, and tell me in the comments which regular Batman villain do you want to see presented next, and how do you want their look and powers and origin story twisted the way they've done it with Mr. Freeze here. So thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.